And here we are beneath my 1994 L400 Mitsubishi Delica. Today's issue, because every day has an issue, is I have a worn bush picked up on during my MOT. The bush is this bush here, the lower front wishbone bush. I'm going to try and show you a way of replacing it with minimal effort. We'll see. So the first thing I'm basically going to do is I just want to mark up my tracking points. If I can mark this heavily enough. And I'm just going to do the same around the back.
I thought it was going to be better to start with the lower ball joint. So this is me removing that. It's just 4 bolts. On my car they're they're all 17mm. I don't know if other people have got mixed match bolts. I have bought ball joints before and they've come with different size nuts and bolts, but they're head size, not the thread size, so could be anything. But yeah, so start off by removing the 4 bolts out of the wishbone from the ball joint. And then just a lower bolt out of the shock absorber. Nice and simple, straightforward. And finally, it's just the tracking bolts. A bit awkward in some ways, as I wanted to keep the wheel of the car on the floor, so it didn't look so dodgy outside the house. You never know, someone might try and pinch you out the alloy or something. And I just didn't really want to pick the whole car up. The rear bolt was a little bit more awkward due to access, but I got in there with a breaker bar in the end. Personally, I'd recommend just going in there with a bloody great big long spanner, but I'm just too lazy to go and get one.
Anything here's a hammer if you're lazy enough.
Apparently I was also being too lazy to go get a hammer. Something I hadn't considered previously, the more observant people might have realised I don't have no anti-roll bars on my car. I removed them years and years ago. I've never felt the need for them. I take the car off-road a lot and I prefer having the extra flex.
That's one.
I'd also recommend lifting this up more than I did. I kept quite a lot of the weight of the car still on the driver's side front wheel. It would have been better to have lifted it right up and take the weight off of it.
lazy wishbone removal. Well, I don't know if it's actually lazy in the end, but it's better than fucking around all day. And just get something else to hold this car up.
Okay, so the bush that was worn pretty badly, and the metal sleeve inside, I could just push it out. Well, I knocked it out with a hammer and chisel. This made it a little bit more awkward to rip the remainder of the bush out. So it was a bit of a long-winded job, which I found a way around with a hammer and chisel and a reciprocating saw. Oh, and also the background noises because I'm running the mill squaring up some stock for a project I'm working on as well. So multitasking. I made the cut on the inside of the housing for the bush, mainly if I did go a little bit too deep with the reciprocating saw, then I wasn't cutting the thin-walled tube and potentially like massive risk of this splitting open whilst going along and like ripping out if you hit a big bump. I figured the best way to get the sleeve out was to sort of beat the crap out of it through this hole so as to kind of make a bit of room in there for some wiggle room, and once it was bent up, sort of chisel it through from the side where I've cut the bush open, so like sort of fold it up on itself. Ooh, it's quiet. I must have finished squaring out that stock on the mill. Personally, this is my go-to on cars for like installing bushes and when I strip brakes and stuff. Bit of copper slip. And that, in a second, is a 32mm socket I'm using. It just happened to fit nicely. Could only go so far because obviously the inner part of the bush protrudes like out the back of it, so I had to put a little bit of tube on the back for some clearance, which is this now. Well, yesterday sucked getting that bush out. Took ages. So typically if I had bushes to pull out and they weren't in such bad condition as the other bush, I would use this simple little chunker box section that I'd welded together ages ago. It works really well to rip bushes out of ball joints, out of wishbones. With a little bit of heat, they come out real easy. And once again, I was using my voice as a press. This time I put a bit of heat in it, which made it quite a bit easier actually than before. So, bonus. Obviously, once again I had to use a little bit of tubing just to give some clearance behind the back of the bush. Like where the centre of the bush protrudes out from the arm itself.
Because
And for anyone who knows what a struggle it is getting the lower ball joints into the wishbone, I always find it worth taking that bolt out the side of the ball joint. Always seems to help a lot with getting the bugger in there. Obviously it's fairly simple from now, you know, just do everything back up that was undone in the first place.
super speed. Okay, my battery is basically dead and I am starting to get flooded out under here, so I'll have to cut this video short. This basically, I just got to tighten up the shock absorbers and align the tracking and I'm done. Bit of speed that's coming down here now, I'm going to get drenched.
Just enough battery left in my camera to record this once I've dragged myself out from under the car. Even though I lined all my tracking marks back up and put everything back as it was, I still took the car to get tracked properly, laser tracked. After I had finished assembling it, I just took it to my local specialist who doesn't mind doing my car. A couple of them moan because it's a bit of a pig to get everything all like lined up. And last but not least, just making sure everything's all done up nice and tight and torqued up again. Don't really want stuff undoing and falling off going down the motorway.
So whilst this is one of the shittier jobs, this is actually the fourth time I've changed the bushes on the lower wishbones on these cars. The first time was an absolute mess. The second time was almost as bad as the first. The third time went really well, and this time, do you know what? I couldn't remember how the hell I'd done it last time. What I would say though is a proper press would make life way easier. But let's see. the wishbones, sorry, not wishbones, the wishbone bushes were, well, they were 30 quid roughly, and obviously I work for free. So 30 quid to rebush the lower wishbone. Granted, the rear bush didn't need replacing, but I thought whilst I had the wishbone out I would replace it anyway because it's been on as long as the front one. So I don't want to take this off again in a few months time or next year for the XMOT. Have fun and take care guys, because this sucked.